Hi guys, my name's Doug, budgetastro.net, and this is a quick tutorial on the use of Deep Sky Stacker. Okay, what you can see on your screen at the moment, I hope, is what the application should look like when you've opened it. If it doesn't look like this, then you've probably downloaded the wrong thing. If you don't already have it, it's available from deepskystacker.free.fr. The FR is for France, I believe. And the important word in that domain name is the word free, because it is. You don't pay for this thing. It's a free download. It's not open source, so you can't modify it in any way, but it is free, and for the price I personally think it's about as good as it gets, really. There are many other applications available on the market. Some are free, some cost an arm and several legs, but for the price, this one, Deep Sky Stacker, is very popular, and I think it's going to do everything that you need for probably several years to come. Okay. Now, what you can see in front of you is three panels. The large grey one, that's where your final image will be displayed once you've stacked your subframes. Quick word of warning here: what you see in that panel, the final image, won't be particularly good. It will need processing in Photoshop or some other photo editing software of your choice. It's displayed there purely to give you an indication of what you've got, basically. The panel beneath that, the white one, is where all the files that you upload, your subs, darks, flats and bias or whatever they'll be displayed in that white panel, and that's just so that you can check that you've uploaded the correct files. And on the left, the blue panel, that's all the options that are available to you as you go through the workflow of creating your stacked image, and that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to zoom into that panel, and we'll upload some files and eventually process an image, and you can see how this thing works. Okay, what you should see on your screen now is a zoom of the blue panel on the left of Deep Sky Stacker. This is where we open our picture files, dark files, flat files, offset bias files. Dark flat files aren't generally used that frequently, so I'm not going to discuss them. I'm assuming you know what picture files, dark files, flat files, etc. are. If you don't, there is information on my website, budgetastro.net, which at the time of this recording is actually still in the planning stage, but I promise you it will be there eventually. So I'm going to assume, for the purposes of this exercise, that you actually know what these things are. Okay, click on Open Picture Files. This will open a dialog box, which hopefully you can now see on your screen. Now be careful here, because Deep Sky Stacker will tend to navigate to the folder from which you last opened those type of files. So if you've taken a previous image, when you click on Open Picture Files, it will go to the folder from where you last selected those files, and that may not be the folder that you're after now because you're processing a new image. So always make sure that you're in the right place. Click back here, and that will take you to the root folder that you've created. I generally create a folder on my hard drive. Nowadays I just put the date, and that's quite a good way to put the date format: the year 2011, the month 01, the day 21, because if you do that, then they'll be listed on your hard drive in chronological order, and I generally then put the object that I'm imaging, and within that folder I create 4 folders: lights, darks, bias and flats, and that keeps everything nice and tidy. So that's quite a good idea. You can do it whatever way you like, but this I find is a good way to organise things. So I open the lights folder again, and we're going to select all of these. Click on the first one, scroll down, hold the shift key down, and click on the last one, and that selects them all. Click on open, and if we scroll down to the bottom, you can see that they've all opened in the bottom panel, which is what we want. Back up to the top, click on dark files. Same thing, check that you're in the right folder, which we are. Click on the first one, scroll down, shift click on the last one, click open. That's the dark files loaded. Back up to the top, flat files this time. Again, make sure you're in the right folder. I would check this with everyone to be on the safe side. click, shift click and open, and lastly bias files. Check again, you're in the right place, bias, click, scroll down, shift click and open. Okay. Now what I'm going to talk about now is the next three options in this list over here. Open a file list, save the file list and clear list. Now we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here because these are traditionally things that you would do after you've stacked an image. For example, what I always do after I've stacked an image is save the file list. Basically all that does is it saves a text file to your hard drive of these files down here, which are the files we've just loaded. It saves a text file with information in there which enables the system to reload those frames should you wish to do so at some time in the future if you want to restack an image, and there will be occasions when you'll want to do that. So the way this works, I'll save the file list now, click on that. That opens the inevitable dialog box again, and I tend to save the file list in the root folder for this image, which is where you've got your bias, flats, darks and lights folder. I tend to save it there. You can save it where you like, but that's where I tend to save it. And you can call the file list whatever you like. It's asking you to type in a file name now. I tend to just put in the date, and I'll put in today's date on this occasion. Click on save, and that's the file list saved. We go back up to the top. Now I'm going to demonstrate how this works, and hopefully it will work. I'm going to click on clear list first of all. Now if we scroll down to the bottom, you can see that the list of files has now disappeared, but we're going to reload it just by clicking on open a file list, and that's a list of files that I've previously loaded, file lists, so we'll ignore that. Click on open another file list, and it's navigated to where I just saved the file list, which is this one here. Click on that, click on open, and if you scroll down to the bottom you can see that they've all reloaded again, so we're back to where we were. Back to the blue panel, slightly lower down this time, and the next thing you have to do on your exciting journey through Deep Sky Stacker, which I'm going to refer to from here on in, Deep Sky Stacker, I'm going to refer to as DSS. That's what it's commonly known as. And Deep Sky Stacker is a little bit of a tongue twister. You've got no idea how many times I've re-recorded this because I can't get my tongue around it. So I'm going to refer to it as DSS, and you'll know what that means. Okay, check all. Basically all that does is put a tick in little boxes in a list of frames below. But before I do that, if you look down here, according to this we have 30 bias frames loaded, and I think you can just about see the top one there. That's already got a tick in the box, so that's why it says 30 there, because they're already ticked. No dark flat frames because we don't use those. 10 flat frames, 23 dark frames, and according to this, 0 light frames. Now we know we loaded light frames, so what's gone wrong here? Now the reason for that is DSS doesn't automatically assume that we're going to use all of the light frames that we've loaded. There is an option, which is this thing up here, check above the threshold, to just use the better ones above a certain threshold. Now that's slightly more advanced, so I'm not going to go into that now. You don't really need to know that. That's something that you can investigate as you become more experienced with the application. Look it up on the internet, and you can use that if you feel the need. Okay, so I'm going to click on check all, and if you look down here now, it says 104 light frames loaded, which is what we loaded, so that's good. Okay, and then the last option in this little panel is uncheck all, which basically takes all the ticks out of the boxes, just reverses what we've just done. Okay, gone into a slightly wider view now, and the reason for that is before we click on this option here, which is the main part of DSS. This is the instruction that tells DSS to start stacking images. There's an option down here called Raw Fits DDP Settings. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to click on that for a second, then it opens this dialog box, which hopefully you can see. I would leave most things in this as the default, rather than this is quite advanced, and it gets a bit technical, as you can tell from some of these options here. Adaptive homogeneity directed AHD interpolation. I haven't got a clue what that means, or most of the other things, to be perfectly honest, and I would doubt that you have. If you have, if you do know what it means, perhaps you'll be good enough to let me know. So leave most of these as they are. but this tab here, Fits Files, gives you the option if this box is ticked. And I've always got it ticked. To be perfectly honest, I don't really know how much difference this makes, but because my camera is one of the ones in this drop down list, a Nikon D70, good old ancient clunky camera I use, there's a huge number of cameras in here. If your camera's there, by all means select it, but in order to do that you need to tick this box. So tick that box, select the camera. That tells the DSS what debayering you're using. 2 greens, red there, blue there. Debayering is again something that's a bit more technical, and if you want to know a little bit more about it, then I would suggest you look it up on the internet. So that's really all you need to know for this panel, and that's this raw fits DDP settings down here. You don't really need to know anything else here. About Deep Sky Stacker is pretty self-explanatory, and so is Deep Sky Stacker's help. But these other things I wouldn't worry about too much for now. Okay, I'm going to click on cancel. Okay, the next option is register check pictures, so I'm going to click on that. That opens the register settings dialog box. Now most of the stuff behind this is fairly technical, and it's stuff that you probably don't need to know at this stage. I'd be inclined to accept the defaults that DSS offers you. I will briefly mention this option here, select the best 98%. I've got that 98 is a figure that I've put in there. Select the best 98% pictures and stack them. What DSS does, it goes through your subs and it gives each one of them a score. And that score is based on the number of stars detected, the roundness of the stars, and that type of thing. What you should do before you load your light frames into DSS is check them yourself in your photo editing software, Photoshop or whatever it is you choose to use. Zoom into the subs and check for star trails. If you've got really bad star trails, then delete them. Don't load them into DSS because it will have an impact on your final image. You will find in the early stages that you'll have quite a few star trails, and that's something that will get better with experience. But for the time being, if you've got really bad star trails, then delete them. Don't use the subs. Load the rest into DSS, and then you can put a percentage figure in there, and that instructs DSS what percentage of subs to use based on the score that it's given them. You could put 90%, 95%, you could put 100% if you're really short on subs, and they're not too bad. If they're reasonably good quality, then by all means put 100% in there. Okay. Now I'm going to click on this Advanced tab and just explain very briefly what this is. Star detection threshold. I think the default for DSS is 2%, so I'm going to leave that at 2%, and then I'm going to click on compute the number of detected stars, and you'll see what happens. It's actually going through the subs, and it's working out how many stars it can see, basically. That can take a little while. There are not that many stars in this particular image. I think it will come up with a figure less than 500. If you're taking an image of the Milky Way, say Cygnus, which sits right in the Milky Way, depending on your field of view, you could have tens of thousands of stars, and that will take a fair while. 412 stars, that's at 2%. Now the higher the figure is, if I put it up to say 20%, 23%, compute the number of detected stars again, this will be a little bit quicker, and it will probably come up with something like 40, 45, something like that I would guess. There we go, 42 stars. If we whack it right up to 60%, it will come out with probably 0. It won't take too long. Okay, here we go, 1 second. 0 stars, okay. This doesn't actually affect the number of stars that's going to appear in your image. That will be the number of stars that are in your image. But this affects the score that it gives each of your subs. 0 stars, I'm guessing it would give each one of your subs a score of 0. So I would leave that at, you can leave it at 2% by all means if you're taking a picture of an area of the sky that doesn't have a lot of stars. But if you've taken an image of the Milky Way and you leave it at 2%, it will take hours to process or to stack your image. So if you've got a huge number of stars, put it up to about 50% or something. But as I say, it doesn't affect the number of stars that appears in your final image. That will be whatever number of stars there are in your image. But do check it to make sure that you've got it on a reasonable setting. If it comes up with 0, then move it back a bit. The lower the percentage, the higher the number of stars that are counted. Okay, that's the Advanced tab. We go back to Actions for a second. Now I'm going to click on stacking parameters, and that opens this box. Okay, loads of tabs. Result, light, dark, flat, bias offset, alignment, blah 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 blah. Again, most of this stuff is quite technical, and I shouldn't worry too much about this stuff at this stage. You can learn a bit more about this stuff as you gain a bit more experience. And there's plenty of information on the internet, and you've got the Dss Help Files as well. So just accept the defaults the DSS offers you. I'll give you an example of the sort of stuff it offers you. Stacking mode, and it offers you that for lights, darks, flats, bias. They're all very similar. You've got average, median, kappa sigma clipping, median kappa sigma clipping, auto adaptive weighted average, entropy weighted average. These are all basically mathematical algorithms, as far as I'm aware, that DSS uses to stack your images. So it's not something that you want to get too deeply involved in. I think the default that DSS offers you is either average or median for most of these. Just accept the defaults for now. And as your experience grows and you learn to use this stuff in more detail, then you can change these options. Or indeed, if you've stacked an image and you're not happy with the result, then go into these and play with it. Basically, that's how you learn these packages, by playing with them. You're not going to do any harm. So just stack your images as many times as you want to, and see whether it changes the result, and that way you'll gain experience. Same for the darks and the flats and the bias. Alignment, I always leave that at automatic. Intermediate files, TIFF files is what's ticked at the moment, and I think that's probably the default. Fits files are a little bit more specialist, so I wouldn't use that option. I would always make sure the TIFF files is selected there. Cosmetic, the default is for them not to be ticked, and I would accept that default. I use these options that you can see on the screen here only because that was suggested to me some time ago by a colleague, and it gives me quite good results. So, but don't worry about it for now. I don't want to get too deeply into explaining this stuff because we'll be here all day. Output is quite important. Make sure this is ticked. I think it is by default. Create an output file, which would be good. Auto save it. Otherwise, you have to actually select the option to save the file, which is down here. That would auto save the file. And this thing here, this link that I'm hovering over, create the output file in. That's actually quite important. I tend to save the file in the root folder for that particular image, which is where I've got the folders for the lights, darks, flats, etc. If you remember, that's where I'll create it. Now, when you create your second or third image, this will automatically go to the last place that you saved the file. So if you're creating a new image and you forget to change this, then the image file will be saved in the location where you saved your previous one, and when you go looking for it, it won't be there. So I do try and remember to save this. You save it just by clicking on it, and then you can navigate to wherever you want the image file to be saved. You will forget, I'll guarantee that. I've done it many times, and when I've gone to look for the output file, it's not been there. So try and remember to save that and make sure that it goes to the folder that you want it to go to. Okay, I think we're more or less there and ready to click on OK. But before I do, I just want to briefly mention recommended settings here. I've just realised I hadn't covered that. If we click on that, this is what we get, and these are basically the settings that you've already put into your stacking parameters. They're reflected here. The ones in green, as it says up here, settings that are already set are shown in green. So these are set. The blue ones are recommendations by DSS, and you can really select whatever ones you want out of them for the time being. If you've got two choices, as you have here, if I click on that one, it will turn green, and that one turns blue, and vice versa. So you can really, as I say, select what options you choose at this stage. You're not going to mean a great deal to you. You should get a decent result, but if you don't, if the picture isn't that clever, and you want to restack it, then just go back into this and change a couple of settings and see what you end up with then. And you gain experience that way. Okay. Okay, stacking steps. Here we go. Now this is basically telling you what DSS is going to do, and this is based on the options that you've selected, whatever you. This will be fine, providing there's nothing shown in red. It will still work if there's something shiny in red. If there's something in red, it means for some reason that your frames aren't compatible. For instance, your dark frames may be a longer exposure or shorter exposure than your light frames, and as I'm sure you know, they should be the same. If you didn't know that, have a look on my website and it will tell you about it when the website's built, which it isn't at the moment. Okay, so there's no red in there. Everything looks fine. So we're now going to click on OK and see what happens. Here we go. It's now actually stacking the images. It's going through the offset frames first, then it will go through the darks, then it will go through the bias, then it will go through the light frames. This can actually take some time. It can take hours if you've got a lot of frames and they're quite quite heavy with data. But this one won't take too long, but it's going to be too long for you to sit here staring at it. So I'm going to pause the video now, and then we'll come back when it's near the end. I'm going to go and have a cup of coffee. Okay guys, here we are back with it. I've gone into a wider view while it loads this picture from the hard drive, so that you can see the picture appear in the grey panel at the top there. It takes a few seconds and it will appear in little blocks. This is what you can see appearing now. Now I don't know if you remember, I mentioned that the image that appears up there won't be very good, but I bet you didn't expect for a second for it to be this bad. Have no fear, the information is there, and that's why you have to process these images to get that information out. And once it's finished loading, I'll show you what you can actually do in DSS to improve the image anyway. Seems to take forever sometimes, these things. Just waiting for the last few black blobs to disappear. One more to go, bottom right hand corner, gone. Okay, there you go. Now your images may or may not look like this. This is one of my very early images, and the white balance was probably incorrect. So your images may look considerably better when they finish stacking. But it doesn't matter, the information is there. It's just a question of getting it out when we do the processing. But what I'll do now, I'll show you very quickly. These controls here adjust the histogram. This is the histogram. There's information about the histogram on my website when it's built, and you'll find plenty of information online, and probably in the Dss Help Files as well. These controls adjust the histogram for the red, green and blue channels independently or together, and adjust the luminance and saturation. Now I don't normally touch these because these are processing steps, and I prefer to do all the processing in Photoshop. I prefer to leave the TIFF file exactly as it is when it came off of DSS. But just to show you that we do actually have a picture here, I'm going to make an adjustment to the black point. I'm going to move that up just a tad. Click apply, and you'll see the picture change in little blocks again, and you can see the image starting to appear now. It looks an awful lot better than it did a few seconds ago, and starting to look recognisable now as the Orion Nebula, M42, everybody's favourite target. This can take a bit of time when you make adjustments to these things, and as I say, I wouldn't normally touch these controls in DSS. I'd leave that until I start doing my processing steps in Photoshop. You can't see much colour in this either at the moment, but the colour is there, and when it's loaded into Photoshop it will look an awful lot better than it does in Deep Sky Stacker. Just a few more little blocks to go. You can talk amongst yourselves while you're waiting for this if you want. Last couple. And there you go. That's the Orion Nebula, M42, in Orion. Okay, I hope this has been useful. I think I've covered more or less everything you need to know at this early stage. The next tutorial I do will be on processing, and it will go through that step by step. So look out for those, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Take care, and may your skies be forever clear.